Hello, in this video I want to talk to you about the problem of other minds. The problem of other minds is a problem that particularly affects substance dualism, and it comes really from two basic assumptions, or axioms I should say, of substance dualism. The first is that the mind is immaterial and non-extended. Now, the mind being immaterial and non-extended means it can't be seen by the senses. It's not the kind of thing that we could go out and find in the world like we find normal things. Yes, we as individuals can intuit that we have minds, our own minds, but we certainly can't see them in anyone else. We can't see them attached to another person's body. Part of the idea here, of course, is that minds are, we have privileged access to our own mind. And by privileged, I mean it's private. We know we have access to our minds. Other people don't have access to what's going on in our minds in the way that we have access to what's going on in our minds. Other people have to infer what's going on in our minds, right? And in fact, other people really, in this case, have to infer that others have minds. We can't know that they do. Okay, so this is a massive issue which affects anyone that believes that the mind is an immaterial, non-extended substance. So how have people tried to get around this problem? Well, one person was John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill gives two arguments in favour of belief in other minds, and they're effectively analogical arguments. They say something like this: I know that I have a mind, and I know that my mind affects what I do in the world, that it affects my body. So when I'm hungry, for example, I'll go and get some food. When I'm thirsty, I'll go and get a drink. Now, I can see that other people go and get drinks, they go and eat, and I should assume by analogy that like causes have like effects. The effect being going to get food or going to get a drink, the cause being some mental event in that person doing it. Now, the key problem with this argument is that, firstly, well, there's two problems really. One, it's analogical, and analogical arguments are never perfect proofs. They work by the claim that there's some structural similarity between the two things. There's a structural similarity between my mind and my body, which I presume exists in others. The other thing about it is there's only one example that we're going with here, i.e. my mind. Think of a scientific proof. In a scientific proof, you have to do the experiment several times to show that there's some lawful connection between, for example, the boiling of water and the temperature of 100 centigrade at sea level, right? So you have to do that several times to make that proof or to come up with a hypothesis. Well, we only have my mind to go on. Right, you only have access to your mind, and you only have access of your experiences and your mental events, being hungry, whatever, affecting your body with you. So how do you generalize from that to claiming that other bodies have minds? That's a major issue. The second attempt that Mill makes is to try and get around this, is to say, well, it's not just my experience of my mind, it's my experience of my mind causing behaviors over many, many years. There's many times I've been hungry and gone to get food. There's many times I've been thirsty and gone to gone to drink something, right? So there's many events of me having a certain mental event, a certain mental experience, phenomenal experience, and that being connected to a behavior. So if you go through all of those, we can ascertain that there's therefore a lot more evidence than just one thing. There's the evidence of experience, and then I can postulate from that, I can extrapolate from that to claim that other people have that as well. Now, I don't think that's a particularly good response anyway, because really you're still only dealing with your experience, so you're still extrapolating from your mind to others. Yes, Mill has managed to kind of find more small, specific events within that experience and extrapolate from that, but I don't think that really gets around the problem. To be fair to Mill, he would argue that you can't prove the existence of other minds in a strict sense. The best you can do is offer good reasons, what we call inference to the best explanation for believing there's other minds. If you don't remember what inference to the best explanation is, it's in the epistemology section, but just to remind you, inference to the best explanation says go with the hypothesis that makes most sense. If you think, for example, if you come across evidence that a person has been murdered, and you find the knife, and you find the motive, and you find a person with a motive, and you find evidence of others saying the person did it, then the best hypothesis at this point is that this person was murdered by that person, right? Not by some other secret cohort of people, or cabal, or whatever. Now, it doesn't mean you've proved the murder, but it means that you should go with the best hypothesis available. And that's Mill's claim. Mill's like, look, I can't prove that there's other minds, strictly speaking, given the claim that they're non-extended and they can't be seen, but I can give you good reasons to think there are other minds. I think a better solution to the problem of other minds would be what you might call Wittgenstein's solution. Instead of trying to meet the problem head on by attacking it, it rather, what we as philosophers sometimes call, undercuts the problem, or it dissolves the problem. It says something like this: to ascribe a mental state to yourself, for example, I am thirsty, I am hungry, I am sad, implies the existence of other people, because you only understand the meaning of those sentences. You only understand the ascription of a mental state to yourself by having been brought into a language game, a community of people who helped you understand what it meant to be thirsty or hungry or angry. And that's something that happened as a child. You were brought in to recognize, so to speak. When you grew up, you were taught to recognize, this is good parenting, by the way, you were taught to recognize your emotions and to name them and label them. But you did that with other people. You did that with the assumption that other people also have them. So the claim here of Wittgenstein is that the very idea of a mental state, of an event, of ascribing it to yourself, is something that you're brought up with by assumption that there are other people and other minds. Now, I like this argument because this argument, well, again, it doesn't prove that there are other minds in the normal way. It rather dissolves the problem and says, look, you can't really have this problem of other minds in a serious way, because you'd have to, in order to believe that you're an only mind, you'd have to know what a mind was. You'd have to have a concept of mind, and that involves in itself, intrinsically, the belief in minds as such. So this is an interesting argument against the existence of other minds. Now, it doesn't strictly prove that there are other minds, because I suppose someone who is doubting whether there are other minds could say, well, that could all be a hallucination, or it could all be a ascription that doesn't really exist, that the people that you were brought up with don't really have other minds, and so on and so forth. That might, strictly speaking, be true, but I think that this kind of approach tries to say something like, look, for this to be a meaningful question, it has to assume the very thing it questions. So for it to be a meaningful question about whether other people have minds, you'd have to have a concept of other people, and you'd have to have a concept of other minds, and that's brought into existence by other people and effectively other minds. So it dissolves the problem of other minds. Now, I've talked about this because it's a significant problem in substance dualism. It's one that, if substance dualism comes up as a question in an exam you want to talk about, and certainly it could come up as a 12 marker, for example, anyway. So there you have it. See you next time.